Welcome again. At this point, we're going to start with a roundtable that addresses the climate emergency from various perspectives. We will try to answer the question of how to support the transition towards a climate-neutral Europe. As you know, climate change and environmental degradation are an existential threat to Europe and to the whole world. To fight against it, Europe launched the Green Deal, a plan to make the EU's economy more sustainable.
I want Europe to become the first climate-neutral continent in the world by 2050.
Most importantly is the works which are going to be done.
Appropriate support for their new obligations.
We need everyone, and no one will get left behind.
As we continue to battle the pandemic, we must also focus on our long-term challenges. This is why the Green Deal, as a growth strategy, remains our compass throughout the recovery.
We will reduce emissions by at least 55% by 2030. And today's agreement puts us on a clear path towards climate neutrality in 2050. It gives certainty to investors, to businesses, to public authorities, and to citizens. It future-proofs our union.
With the objective of achieving climate neutrality in Europe by the year of 2050, the intention of Horizon Europe Cluster 5, in line with Green Deal priorities, is to accelerate the green and digital transitions and associated transformation of our economy, industry, and society. And in this context is key research and innovation, because it will heavily influence the speed at which these transitions can take place. So this roundtable will reflect on how the European Commission is supporting the transition towards climate neutrality through its R&D Framework Programs in key sectors of our economy. To talk and discuss about it, in first place, we're going to say hello to our four speakers. We have with us Gonzalo Míguez Macho from University of Santiago de Compostela. Welcome.
Hello, welcome, thank you.
We are waiting for Hans-Martin Neumann from the Austrian Institute of Technology, who will come to this session in a few minutes. We have also Mr. Konimos Angelakoglu from the Center for Research and Technology, Hellas, third in Greece. Delighted to have you with us today.
Hello, thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here.
And last but not least, Maria Loureiro from University of Vigo. Ms. Loureiro, welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning.
In first place, to talk about investing in environmentally friendly technologies, Gonzalo Míguez Macho from the Cross-Disciplinary Research Center in Environmental Technologies of University of Santiago de Compostela. Mr. Míguez Macho is Doctor of Meteorology from the University of Utah and Professor of Physics at the University of Santiago de Compostela. His research focuses on the development of climate models for studies with a focus on the hydrological cycle. Mr. Míguez Macho, whenever you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the title of my presentation is Climate Change, Identifying and Sizing the Problem. And what I'm going to present here are basically the last results from the assessment report 6 of the IPCC, showing the state of the climate and the latest future projections for climate change. Okay. So my first slide was about the state of the temperature rise. So it's showing the observations and the evidence from the recent past. So we can see that there has been an increase in temperature that is much higher than what has been seen in the last at least 2,000 years. And there's a clear now scientific consensus about the anthropogenic origin of this increase. So we can see here the temperature evolution that we would have without human intervention, and we wouldn't see this increase of more than 1 degree Celsius in the last 150 years if we didn't have this human intervention. Most of this increase is due to the increase in greenhouse gases put in the air by fossil fuel use of for energy production by humans. So most of the increase, which is 1.1 degree, is due to that. There's also other influences from human activities, which go in the opposite directions, mostly through the emission of aerosols. So without those other activities of human origin, the increase would even be higher than what it is now. But the message is that there is a very clear evidence that there is been an increase in temperature in the Earth, on Earth, in the last 150 years after the Industrial Revolution, and that increase in temperature is very notable. I mean, it's very much more than what we've seen in the last 2,000 years, and that is almost entirely or mostly human-made. So that's the message from this last assessment report, which is consistent and basically repeating what it was seen before in the previous assessments. In the future, what is going to happen? So depending on the amount of greenhouse emissions, mostly from CO2, the increase in temperatures will continue at different speeds. So if we continue increasing greenhouse gases at the same speed as what we have now, we will see increases that may end up being more than 4 degrees Celsius in the near future by 2100. And the increase, as I say, of the temperature will depend on the increase on greenhouse emissions. If we see a map of what this increase in temperatures will look like for the different scenarios, so we can see that with a 1.5 degree increase, which is pretty much where we are now, we are at 1.1, around 1.1. If we let it go further to 1.5, we will see a pattern that is shown here on the corner, on the left corner. So most of the increase will be in the polar areas. If we go to 2 degrees, we'll start to see significant increases in the continents, which will go up to 3 degrees or more. And if we go to a more extreme scenario, where the global temperature will increase to 4 degrees, then the increases will be very, very high, up to 7 or 8 degrees, even in the polar zones, and on the continents also the temperature increases will be very high. This will be, a state like this will be catastrophic. It may not look so bad, 4 degrees, but it will be catastrophic for the climate systems, because it will cause the collapse of ice sheets in the poles, and it will cause consequences that will take millennia to recover from. So the change in the climate will not be in the general structure of the circulation of the atmosphere, which will remain the same. So we will still have the same structure with a tropical belt, with an intertropical convergence zone, and we will still have lows and highs and the circulation that we see in the mid-latitudes right now. What would vary with these increases in temperature is the strength of these different components of the circulation and the extent of the different belts. So, for example, the tropical belt may increase, the mid-latitudes circulation that we have now will be displaced poleward, and these changes will affect the climate of several places. make it the changes very drastic, especially in the zones of transition between one belt and the other. For example, in the transitional zones between the tropical belt and the mid-latitudes, this is where we're going to see most of the impact of these changes. So the pattern in the changes in precipitation is what we see here. In general, an increase in temperature translates into an increase in water vapor in the atmosphere, which will cause more precipitation. But the increase in precipitation will not be uniform because, as I was mentioning, in the transitional zones between the mid-latitudes and the tropics, we will see a decrease because basically the tropical belt will expand to the north. So we see these areas that will get drier. Basically, the places that are dry now, or they have a tendency to be dry some years, will become drier in the future. And the rest of the world will become wetter because there is more water vapor in the air. There are other changes that will occur in other variables, not just in air temperature and precipitation, but also, for example, in sea level. So there will be a sea level increase both from the warming of the oceans and from the melting on the ice sheets. So and this increase in sea level change may become catastrophic also of several meters in not just in the near future, but in a more long-term future, because these changes have an inertia that is very difficult to stop once they start to happen. If we go to a more regional European perspective, this newest IPCC report also has a more detailed projection for Europe, where we can see the perspective for the different warming scenarios. So we can see that for 1 degree, the changes will be relatively mild. For 2 degree, which was the previous goal of the Paris Agreement, the changes will be already becoming important in the south of Europe, especially in a transitional zone between what is mid-latitudes and tropics, which is what we call Mediterranean climates. So that area is the one that is going to be most affected. And if we go to an extreme scenario of increase of global temperature of 4 degrees, the warming in northern parts of Europe and in the south will be very extreme, and we will change the environment to a level that we can't size very well right now. There will be changes not just in the mean climate, but also in extremes. So especially in the south of Europe, the warm, the hot days extremes will become much more frequent, especially on the Iberian Peninsula. There will also be changes in precipitation, like in the maximum precipitation days. So there will be extremes in precipitation also occurring more frequently, and droughts will also be more pronounced in the south because the climate will start to become more like a desert. And now, to connect with the rest of the subjects in this roundtable, I will talk about the influence of the cities. So here, there is a breakup of the greenhouse emissions by sector. And the point that I want to make here is that the activities associated with urbanization account for a big amount of these emissions. So, for example, we see here that transport is about 16% of the emissions, and of those transport emissions, about 60% are due to road vehicles like cars, buses, motorcycles, which are mostly associated with urban displacements, urban transport. There is also...
Excuse me, Mr. Miguel Macho, just to remind you that we have more or less 1 minute left. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm almost done. I'm just 2 more slides.
Okay.
So, and there is also a big share of these greenhouse emissions that are due to residential and commercial activities, for heating of the buildings, for lighting the buildings. So many of these emissions, as I say, at least more than 20% are due to urbanization. And cities at the same time, so not only are responsible for a big amount of the global emissions, but also suffer the impact of climate change much more than the surroundings. And this is mostly because of the materials with which they are made, and also because of the geometry of the cities themselves, which prevent the radiation, the infrared radiation, the heat to be radiated back to space and is trapped within the cities. So there is this urban heat island effect, which what it does is increase the temperature of the cities, especially during the night. And this effect in big cities is very notable. So for example, here is up to 8 degrees during the night. So this is my last slide. The cities, as I say, and urbanization are not only responsible for a big amount of the greenhouse emissions, but at the same time, they also show that they've shown a higher trend of heating, and they will continue to increase their temperature at a much higher rate than the surroundings. So it is very important to design strategies to prevent cities from suffering the effect of global warming and from causing global warming. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miguel Macho. Before continuing, I would like to say to the speakers that if they want to add something or ask questions to the other speakers, please do not hesitate to interrupt. You have to just activate your sound and your video and do anything, ask any questions. So we continue. Related with to environmentally friendly technologies is the fact of promoting climate neutral cities. And to delve into this topic, Hans-Martin Neumann, thematic coordinator at the Austrian Institute of Technology. Mr. Neumann leads a team of 16 experts working on smart and carbon neutral urban development. So please, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. As my previous speaker has already announced, cities are, of course, at the forefront of fighting climate change and going towards a climate neutral Europe. And this is what I would like to introduce in my talk now. Just a technical question, should I share my slides or will you do this?
If you have slides, of course, you can share them.
Yes, okay, so I will share them. Can you see them?
Yes, okay, perfectly, thanks.
So, the challenge in the cities is so big, and as also the innovation potentials is so big, the European Commission has decided to include a special mission in the new research framework program, Horizon Europe, which is called Mission 100 Climate Neutral and Smart Cities by 2030. So this initiative will boost the decarbonization activities of the cities in Europe significantly. And it has, I think, a lot of attention at the moment, and it will also leverage a lot of money from public as well as from private sources for major climate action activities in European cities. Of course, it is very ambitious. I mean, 2030 is almost tomorrow. Yeah, we do know that processes and change in cities takes longer than maybe in industry. That makes the program even more ambitious. And I would just like to introduce you to two initiatives that we have the pleasure to work for, which are a key to make this European ambition a success. So one initiative that I would like to introduce is the SCALE initiative. This is a platform that coordinates the upscaling and replication of smart city solutions that have been tested in recent years in European cities. Maybe you heard about this. I think some of you have certainly been also even involved in this kind of projects. Within the previous framework, Horizon 2020, the European Commission has spent a lot of money on so-called smart city lighthouse projects. So that means urban demonstration projects that showcase decarbonization, that demonstrate in specific areas how this can be achieved. AIT has been working on this for many years, altogether 6 or 7 years. For example, also with the city of Santiago de Compostela and the Smarter Together project from Galicia, with many other cities, with Vienna, with Lyon, with Munich, and many others. Since last year, we also have the pleasure to work on the SCALE initiative, which basically collects all the results from the different demonstrators and makes them accessible and understandable and usable for other cities. So if you want to use in particular new technologies, new approaches to bring decarbonization forward, I think this is something that you should really have a look at. And as I will explain later, we will provide several services that are helping cities. The other initiative, which is brand new, is called Net Zero Cities. This is directly an outcome of the mission on climate neutral and smart cities that I've introduced. And Net Zero Cities is a platform, is a project that will provide the platform for the rapid decarbonization by 2030. So there will be several online services available, as well as I would say training and capacity building activities that will help cities to reach this goal by 2030, and I will explain a bit more in detail what this means. So let me start with SCALE. As I said, it brings together all the Smart City Lighthouse projects. Here you see the list of those that have been funded in the last framework program. Each of them brings together 2 to 3 lighthouse cities, plus up to 5 follower cities. The ambition was to demonstrate decarbonization on the district level in smart city districts. And I think the program has a big success and has collected a lot of very interesting insights. So, of course, the insights are scattered. So the SCALE initiative brings together these insights, writes reports on that, makes them visible on the website, assesses the impact, calculates carbon emission. But also we provide peer-to-peer learning activities for cities that want to follow up. We provide seed funding for follow-up projects. If you're interested in this is something we are working on. We extract the business models and make them useful and usable for other cities. And we organize also events that should make the results of the projects accessible and visible, so-called showcases that we will have and brochures that we will have throughout the next 4 years. Furthermore, we are funding experts for small-scale missions. If you are interested in this, I think you should sign up to our expert database, and then we can involve you in future activities. So in the end, the idea is basically to synthesize the results and make them well known and make them useful for cities all over Europe. So this just shows who's behind it. AIT is responsible for the scientific part of it, also for managing the experts. We work very closely from colleagues from Lyon City, actually city stakeholders from SPL, Lyon Confluence, managing it, and several other organizations such as Energy Cities, also a well-known network, and others are involved in this. And here you can see that, well, actually we are somehow a node in the network of the community of the European Smart City Lighthouses, and also of the now and the future of the climate neutral cities. And we will basically also ensure that the different initiatives, the different cities talk to each other, learn from each other, benefit from each other, in order to make Europe stronger and in order to reach this goal of climate neutrality by 2030 in at least 100 cities in Europe. So that leads me now to the second initiative. This is Net Zero Cities. Net Zero Cities is led by Climate Kick and also other big organizations like Eurocities and ICLEI are on board, and in total around, I think, 30 research and practice partners. Really big contract, really big project. The idea of the Net Zero Cities is to help cities to become climate neutral by 2030 by a certain process, and the certain process is defined by a so-called climate neutral city contract. So the idea is that the cities that want to go for this, that feel ready for this endeavor, should sign something like a self-declaration, and an MOU, if you want, declaring that they want to go through this process up to 2030. And this platform, Net Zero Cities, will support them with whatever we have, with all of the resources we have, with capacity building, with indicators, with digital tools, in order to get there, with citizen engagement, with business models, and so on. So the idea is really to have a one-stop shop that provides all the services. Of course, it's not for everyone. No, that's a really something that needs political commitment, that needs an administration that is ready to do this, that needs a citizenship that backs up the whole process. So we will have a kind of an application process that should start now by the end of this year, and the first cities participating in this initiative will be nominated then at the beginning of next year. So if you're a city representative and you're committed to the goal of climate neutrality by 2030, I think here's a great platform that will help you to reach your goals. And we are very much looking forward to the collaboration with cities all over Europe to work on this exciting task. As I said, the consortium is really strong, many partners involved, covering already just from the partner side, almost all of Europe. And the cities, of course, can join from wherever they come. Also, we have no limitations regarding size. Well, if you are committed, we are looking really for the front runners here. We are looking for the ambitious cities, and we would like to help them to reach their goals. And with this, I would like to close. If you want to know more, send me an email or check the websites. The one for Scale is already available. The one for Net Zero Cities will be available soon, and we will be very happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hans Martin Newman. We're going to continue it now with this roundtable. In those climate neutral cities that Mr. Newman has told us about, it is important to ensure more energy efficient buildings. To talk about them, we will listen to Mr. Komninos Angelakoglu, Research Associate at Center for Research and Technology Hellas, third in Greece. Go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks also for the introduction. I will just share my screen and start my presentation. Okay. Okay, thanks again. So
okay, we need, sorry, okay, full screen. That's what I was going to tell you. Thank you very much.
Okay, no worries. So the key goal of my presentation today is to give you some context on why and how can the building sector have a major impact on climate neutrality goals, as well give you some first insights, practical insights, on what seems of high interest so far in relevant Horizon Europe calls regarding this issue. To start with, I've gathered some numbers highlighting the significance of transforming the building sectors. These values may change depending on the boundary, the scope, and the references, but all in all, we can say that EU buildings collectively are responsible for almost 40% of our energy consumption and 36% of our GID emissions. Whereas roughly 3/4 of the EU building stock is considered energy inefficient. Renovating existing buildings could reduce EU's total energy consumption by 5 to 6% and lower carbon dioxide emission by about 5%. What is also very important is that these energy savings offer an opportunity for EU to increase its energy security. We are currently living these challenges and problems based on the value of the gas, since 1% of energy savings can reduce EU gas imports by 2.6%. This is very important. On another perspective, if we see some data from the EU Building Stock Observatory, we can see that the EU has a residential floor area of around 22.7 billion square meters, most of them, 78%, built before 1990. And these are buildings that already or in the very near future will require renovation. So that means almost 18 billion floor area square meters. If we also consider that on average, based on data on 2014, unfortunately, that was the latest data that we had from the observatory, these buildings consume around 160 kilowatt hours per square meter. There we see an extremely high potential for change. So the key question that comes to our mind is whether are we performing well, and the truth is not as well as we could. Progress falls below expectations, with weighted annual average renovation rate being as low as 1%, and this value becomes close to nil if we only consider deep renovations. I mean renovations that can achieve at least a reduction of 60% of energy consumption. On top of that, roughly 11% of Europe's population still experiences energy poverty. An extra challenge is that the construction sector is still considered and is viewed as underperforming and is characterized by significantly lower rates of productivity compared to other sectors of the economy. Regarding this last point, a recent report by McKinsey and Company highlighted the need to move beyond today's construction ecosystem, which is characterized by highly complex, fragmented, and project-based processes, and move on towards the construction ecosystem of the future, where a more standardized, consolidated, and integrated process is envisioned. So, building upon these needs, EU is attempting to transform the EU building stock by setting some policies and legislation. You are already familiar with them: the renovation wave, the Green Deal, and many others. It also introduces new tools that will become a great part of our, let's say, renovation lives in the very near future. The digital building logbooks, for instance, the building renovation passports, the smart readiness indicators, and the levels European frameworks for sustainable buildings. So all these initiatives, all these tools of EU, together with recent developments, technological developments, we have a pool of a lot of very innovative and great solutions that increase energy efficiency, increase energy autonomy, as well as smartness of the building stock, offer a great opportunity to make renovation a win-win climate situation for climate neutrality and economic recovery. On these next slides, I will very briefly give you some examples of relevant solutions that are being implemented under, at least at the moment, H2020 projects. Some smart city projects are also included in these examples. So this includes, among others, we'll give some ideas here. We don't have the time to explain them in detail. I just want to give the essence of that there are a lot of solutions available out there. This includes, for instance, thermochromic glasses that eliminate the need of blinds and curtains, different insulation materials that include a very high percentage of bio-based materials, facade-integrated smart ventilation, preformed insulation systems. Phase change materials are also utilized in floors or in heat storage tanks. There are quite innovative decentralized tanks for domestic hot water, and for sure quite a lot of IT equipment if we want to orchestrate and if there is a local renewable energy production. All these solutions have a major impact on energy efficiency and savings, and are also characterized, which is also important, by exemplar environmental performance and, of course, an attractive payback time, because this is also important. There are also several solutions that can generate renewable energy on a building level or a district level, which combine attractive performance with increased aesthetics and customization. This is very important because most of the times there are several architectural constraints, especially in very old and heritage buildings, which are a lot actually in the European building stock. So these are important aspects. So examples of these solutions include building integrated photovoltaic glasses, photovoltaic canopies, photovoltaic skylights, photovoltaic shingles, hybrid wind solar system for roofs. For sure, once we have energy production, it's always welcome to also have some storage to support flexibility and reduce curtailment. There are a lot of the prices are becoming lower and lower. There are innovative ideas on stationary residential batteries. There are even portable batteries based on reusable EV batteries, innovative thermal storage solutions, and of course, vehicle-to-grid smart charging stations are also a very interesting idea. And finally, we are all becoming more and more familiar with smart technologies like smart thermostats with integrated forecasting or smart building energy management systems. There are even platforms also in alignment with the one-stop shop approach that the European Commission really wants to see. There are platforms that allow users to communicate and interact with each other and monitor the overall flow of renovation, bringing together different phases. So instead of conclusions, I preferred to give you some first experience we had while submitting our proposals here in CERT in relevant calls dealing with energy and the building stock on what seems of interest so far for the European Commission. So the first thing for sure is to support increased levels of local renewable energy generation, but without affecting system stability. We always need to take care of concerns regarding how this affects the system, the energy system stability. There is a lot of emphasis on prefabricated products and offsite construction, and this is because we really need to reduce time on site and thus the disturbance of renovation, which is a major barrier for wide-scale rollout of reforming the building stock. There is also a great interest for digitalizing the construction process, and mostly this refers to having a digital twin of the building, which unlocks a lot of services related to the smartness of the building, as well the construction and so forth. For sure, we need to take advantage of these smart technologies, like the ones I mentioned above. And other critical issue that is mentioned in a lot of calls is reducing the gap between as built and as designed energy performance. And actually, this is a great problem. In literature, we can see that even percentages up to 60% difference between the as designed and as built performance are observed, which is a lot. That changes all the way, all the, let's say, design process. As mentioned in the beginning, we should view the buildings now as active nodes of the energy systems. This cannot be viewed in isolation from the grid. We need to have the buildings in our mind while designing, planning, and constructing building how they interact with the rest of the energy system. And there is also a great interest for the creation of renewable energy communities. This is also that is highlighted in many topics. To achieve all this, we need to bring together different construction and renovation phases. I mean, it doesn't work having something good on design, a new process on actual construction, operation, end of use, or even change of use. All these steps, all these phases, construction and renovation phases, need to interact. Although the energy is for sure the focal point of all this discussion we are having, we shouldn't neglect cross-cutting issues such as accessibility and better living conditions. In the end, this is about satisfying the end user, which is the occupant of the building. And finally, it is very important to unlock tailored access to building information across the life cycle for all relevant stakeholders. This is something that the European Commission mostly tries to achieve through the digital building logbook that to implement in the future in the new EPCs. This is just a few words about CERT. Don't need to waste extra time. I thought I was also okay with the time. That was my presentation. Thanks a lot for the invitation once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Angelakoglu. The last intervention of this roundtable will address how we can make a more sustainable industry and also the third industrial revolution, and will be given by Maria Loureiro from ECOBAS, Economics and Business Administration for Society Research Center from University of Vigo. Ms. Loureiro, all yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Ida, let me share my presentation with you.
Yes, I think you have to activate also your video.
Correct.
There you go.
And now it worked perfectly well while we did the 1 second, please.
Yes.
You see it now? Now full screen.
Yes, full screen, and there you go. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you to you. I appreciate the invitation, and indeed it has been a great and interesting session, so I am learning a lot. So let me tell you a little bit, first of all, about our research and how our research is related to the topic or to the cluster we are discussing today, climate, energy, and mobility. So I will be talking a little bit about what barriers do we encounter when we do this transition or this pathway towards a new economy, which is neutral in carbon, or hopefully neutral in carbon soon. Let me first say a few words about why I'm here. I'm representing the research center ECOBAS, which is a Galician research center in economics and business. This is an inter-university center, and although I have been introduced as being a member of the University of Vigo, this is where the location of ECOBAS will be. Nevertheless, my job is at the University of Santiago, so in any case, I'm delighted to be here and be part of ECOBAS. So ECOBAS is this new creative research center that aims to construct knowledge and disseminate knowledge within economics and business within the three Spanish Galician universities. And basically, we have different research lines, although one of our most crucial and relevant research lines are related to environmental economics and in particular climate economics. With respect to that, we have a different kind of projects that certainly I will not talk about those today because I want to focus on questions related to this roundtable, and particularly how we can push forward the transition to a neutral carbon economy. But I thought it was relevant to indicate that in addition to all the topics that are being offered in cluster number 5, we are also very active in cluster number 6 related to bioeconomy, wildfires, and other related events, and so on and so forth. Furthermore, some of our researchers who got the highest grants from the ERC, we are talking about in single grants that highlight the quality of the researcher, work on post-growth scenarios and other kind of development scenarios that may be very, very useful from an economic standpoint. So coming to the point of why I'm here today is let me allow me please to highlight a few concerns we have when we work about transition issues, and particularly when we work towards a decarbonized economy. As has been already stated in the introduction, it's certain that this powerful role that will play the European Green Deal and how companies are working out the transition to this neutral economy. In a recent report, just to have some information, the Transition Pathway Initiative has shown that it's very difficult for some companies to implement measures to be in the path to being carbon neutral for 2030. In particular, they have highlighted how the energy sector is working out and how the energy companies are making this transition, emphasizing that only 2 of them, Shell and Repsol, are in the best conditions to be or achieve being carbon neutral in 2030. I'm going to be talking about today some issues that we are encountering in the Galician economy all over the place worldwide when firms try to emphasize or push forward for this carbon neutrality. In particular, I'm going to be presenting a case study we work on, a project that we work on in Inditex. And in this particular case...
Excuse me, Ms. Loureiro, just an interruption, so sorry. Could you please apart a little bit the microphone of your face so you can...
Yes,
yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah,
thanks.
Thank
you.
No problem. Sorry about the interference. What I'm mentioning now is that I would like to show you some concerns that we are facing when we are making this transition, right? In economics, usually we look at state A or state B, and for most of the time, we don't look at the effects or issues that may emerge within this transition from A to B. And this is what we are trying to do here in this work with Inditex. As you well know, all Inditex is a very important corporation, worldwide corporation in the clothing sector. And over the years, they have worked a lot on energy efficiency issues in order to, as our previous presenter indicated, being more efficient in terms of saving energy consumption and heating and cooling. But however, they have discovered that in spite of the huge effort made, the reduction in energy heating was relatively insignificant with respect to the effort made. And this was happening on the worldwide chain. So the question is why? Why do we invest in top quality energy systems and we don't get the return we are hoping to get? And with my colleague Xavier Lavandera, we work on a paper with Inditex trying to figure out what is happening or what is the role that technology plays with respect to the humans' interactions. So I'm not going to tell you about Inditex per se, but you know that it's one of the largest corporations right now on the face of the earth in terms of the fashion industry. And they are very aggressive right now in terms of pushing sustainability forward. They have great objectives in terms of achieving sustainability goals established for 2030. These goals are necessary for the firm to also to get more investors and have a green image that they desire to have, and they are indeed having crucial operations in water, energy, and biodiversity protection. We work with them considering three stores, three chains, Pull&Bear, Zara, and Oysho, in three different countries: Italy, Spain, and Germany. In all of these stores, they set up what is called an eco-efficient store. The eco-efficient is a sort of smart store that controls quality, controls temperature, it controls also humidity levels, is able to even change the lighting according to the needs of the day, and so on and so forth. So what we have done is to look at the effect of, okay, do we are getting an overall assessment in terms of energy savings, yes or no? Do the appliances we establish in these stores are sufficiently good to reduce energy consumption or not? And in the case that if there are some gaps, how we can improve them. So Inditex has this energy efficiency platform here in La Coruña, in their establishments. And as you may observe in the headquarters, they can verify what is happening in all the stores around the globe. That's kind of a very huge investment in terms of energy consumption. They can click in any of the stores they have operating, and they can see what is the energy consumption at that particular moment and the particular history of the store. So this is a fascinating big data system by which they can control and direct any alarm that may happen into the energy systems and verify energy consumption levels. But nevertheless, in spite of that, when we start analyzing what is happening in terms of indoor temperatures, what we discover is a huge variance in indoor temperatures. You may see that in the first histogram, this one. So for some stores, we saw temperatures moving between the range of 19 degrees or 28 degrees, which is a huge difference in terms of temperature management. So what it came out to be is that temperature management was not efficient at all, in spite of having the best thermostats available in the industry and the best systems available. And when we look into the average temperatures of the three chains that I showed you, what we discovered is that there was a huge important failure in terms of temperature setting. If we look at the average temperature, we discovered that the average temperature indoor, the inside store, was on February, whereas the coolest was in July. That's exactly the opposite of what should be an energy efficient consumption, where the coolest should be closer to February or January, and the hottest should be closest to July and August. We say that because anyone who looks for efficiency in temperature management should be aware that the best temperature should be selected considering the outside temperature, and keeping in mind that we need to have people inside comfortable, but the indoor temperature should not be too far away from the outside temperature, and taking always the outside temperature as the reference point to set up the indoor temperature. So knowing that, what we discovered is that general store managers of Inditex Corporation basically set up the thermostats as we do in our homes, warming it up excessively during February or the coldest months, and cooling it down on the summer months, but in an excessive way. This why? Well, because even though they have been trained to understand how to manage temperature and they establish a lot of systems for controlling temperature, there are many behavioral inertias that I want to bring up to your attention. So these inertias imply that you are behaving today as you used to do before the technology had been implemented or before you were trained. And there's also some lack of incentives that we may talk about, or even agency problems, meaning that it's very difficult to transfer or to send a clear message about sustainability from the top manager level to the down manager or even the store employer. So although top investors and top managers may have a very clear vision of sustainability, that vision decreases or becomes different when in the day by day you may have to make decisions on your temperature and everyday life choices. So what we did, it was to try to figure out, okay, how we can improve the energy setting and how we can reduce consumption when they have all this great equipment themselves. So what we did was to use a very basic experiment, use behavioral economics in order to figure out how we could create a randomized control setting in which 50% of the managers selected will not receive any information whatsoever, and they will be treated as our control group in which no information was given, and another group, a 50% randomly selected, that will receive some sort of a treatment or informational treatment, as I'm going to show you, in order to remember that energy should be strategically used. So we selected 20 issues in Spain, 20 Pull&Bears and 65 Ceras, all of them very identical in terms of the controls and the settings that they use in energy efficiency procedures daily. And what we did was that for those that we randomly selected for the treatment group, we sent them a letter. The letter was sent via email, so it was a very corporate, very interesting email written by the General Director of Sustainability. And it was translated to the different languages, German and Italian, and in Spanish as well, so that they were informed that please be aware that temperature is a crucial aspect for our operations and for our cost. So that 1 degree more with respect to the average temperature or the optimal temperature will imply a 4% more of the CO2 emissions and energy use. So it has been sent like that. So 50% of the sample receive an email as I am showing you with a message important information signed up by the head of the environmental sustainability of the group. And the other 50% did not receive any message. So what did happen? We also collected information in terms of this historical consumption of energy of the stores. We got a lot of information in terms of the size of the store, external temperature of the day, whether it was a flagship or not, meaning a flagship store is one that shows off the brand. Therefore, they use a lot of energy consumption in the windows and so on and so forth, the location. And we knew a little bit about the store manager as well, whether it was a male or a female, the number of years of experience, and so on. And we had some sort of hypothesis, okay, how this information is going to behave, how this information is going to have an effect on them, how they are going to change the temperature setting and whether or not they will choose a better optimal temperature. So, and what we discovered is that there was a clear difference between the gap in temperatures between those that were treated and non-treated, meaning
Ms. Loureiro, sorry for the interruption. Sorry for interrupt you. We were more or less scheduled to finish at 2 o'clock, and we wanted to do a round of questions first. So if you can try to resume in a minute, we will appreciate a lot.
That's what I was doing. Thank you. That's exactly what I was doing. So running regressions and having the history of the data, what we discovered is that indeed some sort of very quick investment in information and also like in the setup of information, it reduced the gap between outside temperatures and indoor temperatures significantly. So in summary, what we discovered is that although, of course, we need to push forward for technological solutions, these technological solutions have to work hand by hand with human interactions. And we also believe that information and also social media, as it has been mentioned before, is a crucial point in which individuals can be informed as well as in terms of performance of the main firms operating in a sector. So just as a summary and to conclude, certainly it's very relevant all we are presenting here today in terms of innovation, in terms of strategies, but these steps should be achieved also considering human interactions going along with them. And also we believe that in addition to technology, which certainly is super relevant in order to achieve these very stringent objectives, information to encourage reductions in consumption and more intelligent selection of electricity should be also considered when we make decisions. So that's a little bit what I wanted to tell you, and thank you very, very much for giving me the chance.
Thank you very much, Ms. Loureiro, for your intervention. Now, very quickly, we go with a round of questions. I ask the speakers to be very short. I assume that we are going to be a little bit late at the end of this session, but okay. So we start with Gonzalo Míguez, who was the first in his intervention. Referring to your words, I would like to ask you the mission scenarios you were talking about to make climate change prediction were developed years ago. So can you see which one we are following at the moment?
We are currently heading towards, we are in the scenario where we're heading towards an increase in temperature of about 3 degrees. So it's not the worst of the scenarios that I was showing, but it's still far from what we should be heading in terms of being in the safe zone, we would say. So we need to still have higher reduction in emissions to be in a stable situation for climate.
Okay, Mr. Newman, which additional support measures, apart from the ones that are already provided by the European Commission, do you think are needed to facilitate the transition towards climate neutral cities in Europe?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think there's a lot of measures at the moment available and money is available for this. So I do hope that, well, the opportunities will be taken up. Yeah, we need to see how cities react with the different formats that are now available. Yeah, which ones work well, which ones need to be improved. And then I think the next step is, of course, that there are also now opportunities to attract more private investment into this. No, with, for example, the new taxonomy that should EU taxonomy that should support also private investment into green industries. That's a huge opportunity. But I think cities are not yet prepared to really work with that because traditionally, well, the Europe planning and the financing, for example, have been quite detached. Private sector investment was more something that was maybe a bit suspicious, so not something that was really used as an opportunity. So I think this is where just working modes and mindsets need to change. But well, we still have a couple of years, not many, but some. And so I'm optimistic.
Okay, so in that line, how can we prepare cities? Mr. Angela Koglu, how can industrialization in the building construction renovation sector be achieved?
Yeah, actually what we see in practice right now, because this is and will become even more recommended and wanted, both by the European Commission, but also by the construction sector itself, we need to move towards, let's say, the off-site manufacturing. Let's think about the construction, the sector to become something like the automotive sector, where we have lean construction techniques. Most of the products will be produced off-site and will be directly included, like facades, for instance, into the building. So we will highly reduce disturbance and time. And another way is through utilization of robotic systems. This is something that we see more and more a lot. Robotics that so far were used only in the industry to be utilized during the construction, mostly in new buildings, to be honest. For instance, for avoiding heavy scaffolds that produce a lot of dangers during construction, for making the holes, for sorting waste, and so far. So these two axes, off-site manufacturing and utilization of robotic systems as a first step.
Okay, thank you very much. And referring to your intervention, Ms. Loureiro, how can you use your results for policy design? Are your results generalizable to a larger number of firms?
Oh, well, what we observe is that, as has been mentioned, robotization is a trend, it's a crucial trend in the industry right now and many sectors. And our results, to some extent, they may be generalizable to other sectors, and this is a question that we should study and analyze more in detail. But at least they show that in addition to having the robotization, is crucial the interaction with humans and the human behavior. So we should not forget about human behavior in any case, given that that is crucial for them to achieve the objectives that are supposed to.
Okay, I don't know if any of the speakers wants to add something to the others or ask a question or anything. Okay, so thank you very much to all you. Thank you very much, Gonzalo Míguez, Hans Martin Newman, Cominos Angela Coglow, and Maria Loureiro. Thank you very much